How's everybody doing today? Thanks for joining us for another episode of Facebook Live. I'm Dylan,
And I'm John.
and today John's got a new mug for you, so why don't you go ahead and tell him what it's from?
I have a mug from Contemporary Staffing. Thanks to the friends over there. Appreciate it. Obviously, a staffing organization. Hence, it's called Contemporary Staffing. So there you go.
There you go. All right, like I said, thank you all for joining us. Today we decided to switch it up a little bit. We're doing a 1 p.m. instead of 11, if you haven't noticed. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We actually have a new topic for this week.
1 p.m. East Coast.
1 p.m. East
Because
Coast.
it's not that way for everybody, right? This
that
is
is right.
probably better for some of our West Coast friends.
Yeah,
Right?
there we go.
Hawaii, probably a little more reasonable for them.
Yeah. All right. Eastern Standard Time. So like I
It's
said,
actually Eastern Daylight Time.
Eastern Daylight Time. Oh man, 0 for 2 so far. We'll see how
Prep
we go.
for
the rest of
summer.
the
Here we
video.
go.
HR prep for summer is a topic. Question
Okay.
number 1 is,
What do you got?
what is the proper dress code for a work environment during the summer?
Dress code. So what is the proper dress code? Gosh. So some organizations don't have much of a dress code,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you can wear whatever you want to wear, then I guess keep doing it.
Yeah, most people will be all right with that.
What do you think? Some organizations have enough clientele that might be coming through, customers that are coming through, so uniform policies still are in place. You could transition some of your uniform policies, meaning, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, some organizations, is when you're allowed to wear short sleeve polos, let's say, as opposed to, say, button up shirts like this. Some organizations allow for, open-toed sandals. I mean, again, it depends on the kind of organization you have. I don't want to paint it negatively. If you do have to have consideration around dress code, organizations that serve the public more directly probably have some health code considerations. You can't necessarily wear open-toed shoes, right, in some of those environments. So I guess just broadly, if you are worried about what your staff may do for the warm weather, depending on where you are, then have a conversation about it, right? If flip-flops are really not something that are okay, then explain why. For those that are watching or will be watching that are from the insurance industry, I hear them jumping up and down about flip-flops because, workers' comp injuries there, people trip on flip-flops a whole lot easier. It's just not that, obviously there's not a whole lot of structure to the shoe to help be supportive. If you're on your feet all day long with no arch support like that, you run the risk of foot injuries. And I'm not trying to be the, Debbie Downer, but the reality is some organizations have to be considerate of that. They may already have a high claim rate when it comes to workers' comp, and this, what seems like not a big deal, this kind of stuff can amplify some of the consideration. I would say, though, that if this is really about the reactive perspective, meaning I feel like people who work for us dress like trash in the summer, right? And I hear people say that all the time. Guys come in with frayed shorts or flip-flops, like I said, or they're worried that young ladies are going to dress more provocatively, which I don't even know what that means, but this is what business owners will tell us. My response to that really is, in part, how much of that is a cultural consideration. You may have one frame of reference of what's appropriate that may not necessarily be what's happening culturally. Mm-hmm. But the larger conversation is really what's important. We have clientele that are coming through our establishment on a regular basis. The image that we want to portray is one that is X. So you can't say that you're like, fresh and youthfully minded, and then tell everybody they have to be in 3-piece suits and, executive wear. I'm not saying that you can't still be young and wear that. I'm saying, does it really match the brand that you are saying that you are? So, in some ways, this dress code conversation, which does come up more in the summertime, is really one that has to be looked at more globally, holistically in the whole organization. Don't make it be about a season. I remember working for organizations where we did have to have required seasonality about appropriate dress. I went to Catholic school, right? So we had to wear, only allowed to wear polos at certain months of the year, September, half of October, May, and June. The rest of the time we had to wear, guys had to wear button-up shirts and clip-on ties and all that good stuff. That's what it was. There was something prescribed. It might make sense more on a juvenile basis to have that kind of structure. It may not on the adult level. And if you're worried that people who come around in shorts and t-shirts won't be as productive as those that are wearing, khakis and a button-up or slacks and a blouse, test that theory. Test the theory. Give people a month. Let them wear something that's not what you would prefer and see if it affects it. Is it a battle that you want to have? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think the customer has to dictate part of it, though.
And it makes sense what you sasaid. It's all about the company's image, what they want to give off, as well as, like you said, the safety concerns, people walking around with flip-flops. So it's a little bit of both.
My oldest works at Chick-fil-A. He cannot wear shorts and flip-flops to cook that chicken, which is delicious. But he can't do it. He's not allowed to because there's health code considerations. So some of it, the flexibility is removed because of what you do. Don't apologize for that if you are a business owner in that way. Why do you act like it's a negative? That's what's required. It helps to keep us, our organization, as honest and full of integrity as it's supposed to be, that we're upholding these standards that are prescribed by law. Great. Be proud of it.
Yeah. I can tell you one thing real quick. I was also in the restaurant business during my days in college. We were required to have non-slip shoes, and I actually didn't wear them one time, and I took a slip in the kitchen. It was my fault, but
it is your fault.
It's because I didn't listen.
It's because you didn't listen, and you should have been disciplined and terminated probably because it's a workers' comp injury because if something were really to happen for that, it costs the company money. They don't get to call into the insurance company and say, guess what? Dylan said it was his fault, so we're good. He's going to take care of it. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. All right, that was a good number one question.
Was it? Okay.
All right, going into question number 2.
Okay.
What are the basics around vacation requests that a new HR person should be aware of?
Yeah, that's nice. I like the qualifier for a new HR person because I think that one of the things that we wrestle with, especially if you're newer into the discipline, who wants to be the person that says no? Right? Somebody's requesting vacation and to go back to someone and say, I can't let you take it that week, right? Somebody else already has it, or it's a blackout period because of our business. Some businesses honestly make 75% of their income in the summer months, for example, when maybe typically in most areas of the US, at least in some other countries as well, the summer months might see people take holiday or vacation in a more concentrated way as opposed to it being spread out all year. But if your business is heavy in terms of its productivity in the summer, it's hard to let people all have off. So I'd say if you're new in the HR world, you could put some basic structures in place around maybe first in, first approved kind of things, right? Kind of dated in a way that's going to be about as the requests are made through the system. Obviously, if you're able to utilize technology for this, I really would encourage that because the technology keeps everybody honest. You can show very clearly, Dylan made his request before John. Here it is in the system. It's time stamped. It's not my preference. John, everybody's not against you. And that's why you just can very clearly say, look, our policy is first in, first approved, if possible. This is what happened. Dylan got the yes. You asked off for the same week. You both can't be gone from the department at the same time. Sorry. Some organizations do utilize a seniority system. Again, if that's the route that you want to go, be very clear about that. It should be disclosed very clearly, not only in the handbook, but remind people seasonally to say, hey, just FYI for everybody, maybe you could have done this, say, back in April. As you start to think about your summer plans, remember, those that have been here longer make it preferential because it's part of the perk of being here longer, or if it's first in, first approved, just remind people of what the policy is because that keeps it honest. And if you're new to HR, it also removes maybe some of that fear of having to say no or the concern around whose requests seem to be more important than another person's. So, and again, if you're new to HR and you report to somebody, have this conversation with the person. Ask them, hey, how have you handled vacation requests when you talk to people?
Yeah.
When we have to say no? What do you typically say? Why do we say no? Is it a real reason? Is it a good reason? Is it just because somebody in your department already asked for it? Well, can two people be gone the same week? Have we ever tried? Right?
Yeah.
You can ask good questions, and it should be safe within the HR department to do that. If you work for a manager or director who's not interested in you asking questions, you may not be working for the right company. I mean, I would just have to say that, because if you can't learn how to do HR well in some of these tactical ways, you're never going to want to sit and talk to them about anything strategic or transformative, because it's too much of a risk. It's too open-ended. You're already shooting me down on the black and white questions. What the heck makes you think I'm going to ask you things that are more open-ended? I'm going to be the new HR person who clams up and who probably isn't going to learn a whole lot.
I see where you're coming from, because the company I worked for back in high school, there was more of a first come, first serve taking off, because it was more people wanted to take off vacation in the summer. So it wasn't like, everyone doesn't like John,
right,
and all. So,
and July 4th,
yeah,
in some parts of the country, like people love to take off the week of July 4th, in part because of some companies, their vacation policies. The July 4th is a holiday.
And my birthday.
So it is your birthday. I actually did.
Had to throw that in there.
That isn't the reason it is a holiday. Let's be clear. But July 4th for organizations is a holiday, which means it may not count against the time you use for your vacation. So instead of having to use 5 days of vacation, you only need to use 4 that week. So it's common to see even a spike in that particular week of vacation requests. Well, you might not be able to say yes to everybody. So you have to have policy in place to help keep you honest.
All right. Going into our third and final question, how do you structure production prep and vacation over the summer?
Good. So connected to some of what we just were talking about. So this may sound funny to say. Sometimes you have to remind people that work for you, we actually have to produce things in order to stay open and have the lights on and have something to drink or eat or coffee. If we don't do what we're supposed to do, either by service or product production, we're not going to stay open. So we can't put ourselves in a position where we're saying yes to a bunch of vacation requests that might cause problems with our productivity. You still need personnel to handle the requests coming in, again, the production to meet. If you're in a service industry, as many who will be listening know, sometimes in the service industry, you can't predict what the phone calls are going to be on any given day. So if there aren't enough personnel to handle what's going on, you could lose business. You could disappoint current clients. There's a ripple effect to that. So what I recommend departmentally within an organization, have your managers be involved in the process of determining if we're stretched thin. What's the minimum competency and hands for those competencies that we need to maintain production of a certain level? We're not talking about being able to complete everything. Maybe you are willing to have a 5 to 10% margin of incomplete projects or work. We're willing to take a 5% hit on production that week.
Due to the fact of employees being out on
vacations, right? We can deal with that. We have enough backstock, whatever it might be. You have to look at that. And here's where our bare minimum is. So maybe, and I'm speaking very generally, maybe you've got 10 people in a department, and those 10 people, if you do a really good capacity analysis, those 10 people can handle the production, and usually their capacity is at 90 to 95% threshold. That means that we can point to efficiencies that and product that they're producing with the time that they work. 90 to 95% of their time is on task, getting stuff done, all good. Well, because most people don't work at 100% capacity. That's just what it is. But maybe if we remove one of the 10, we see a jump of 3% in their capacity. So they go from 90 to 95% to 93 to 98%. Okay, we're okay with one person being gone. So now if we have two people gone, let's call that 6%, right? So now we might be at again,
low 90s range.
No, upper. You might cross 100%. Like the upper end, you could be, instead of 90 to 95, you could be 96 to 101 capacity. Okay, is 101 awful? Odds are, even if everybody's like full steam at 100%, right? You can't go beyond 100% capacity, really. Then 1% might be okay, right? We might say we're going to produce as much as we can in 1 week to let two people be off the same week. But you can point to something that's measured in order to do that. And again, it keeps it from being personal or perceived as personal. Your managers, if they're competent, can give you a frame of reference as to what it takes to produce the level of product or service that has to go out on any given week from a department of people. Again, I'm speaking very generally. There's a lot of analytics that goes into that, but there's conversation that you can start with. So it helps to keep you honest for what it takes to keep the production where it is, and what's it like for us to approve vacations that are concurrent, because you cannot afford to have production damaged. And I don't mean the goods, I mean how much production you're doing because of how much time off people have. Now, let me give a caveat, because we didn't touch on this. Some organizations have open-ended PTO. You take off as much as you want, personal, vacation, sick, whatever. It's open-ended. There's no cap. So people can take off days here and there, whatever. Look at what your organization has been able to do then in that, from a production standpoint, in that truth. Has it really affected heavily the amount of productivity that a department has because of that open-endedness? People who are going 1 or 2 days a week here and there throughout the year. If it hasn't really, then it may not be as critical to be as on top of this as opposed to those organizations that have finite time off.
As you were just making in the last example.
Right. So that is a balanced consideration there as well.
All right. That's a great way to put it. All right. Well, that wraps it up for today.
Summer prep.
Thank you all for joining in. Like I said, this one was at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, as John got me with. This video will be on YouTube shortly, so if y'all want to check it out, you can go on our YouTube page as well as our Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram page. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next one.